welcome to the additional recording for Research and Information Skills in Week 7. This week I want to briefly look at and concentrate on the workshop material, as I always do in these additional recordings. But there's a couple of reasons why it's important this week. Without labouring the point, because I know you're actually in the middle of doing, or should be, doing Assignment 2, I want to start to look ahead, and the workshop this week is for that particular reason. We're looking ahead towards the third assignment on your rather crammed calendar. There's a lot to do, I appreciate that. However, I'm hoping that the assignment in week 3 is of such a nature, given that you're actually directing what you're doing, that you'll have a lot of interest, a lot of excitement perhaps about doing it. It's an opportunity to actually investigate or explore something that you're interested in, and you can call it study at the same time. So for me personally, I would pick a subject which I have obviously a distinct interest in, but I haven't had the opportunity or the time to actually investigate it properly, and I would convert that into Assignment 3. Obviously you've got a format to actually work within. You have to obviously, in this case, develop a plausible research plan, and from that and to this end, this workshop for week 7 is directed towards that. Anyway, let's get to the PowerPoint, which, if you have a look on slide 17, I've looked at, or should I say begun to look at, how you might actually go from a topic of your interest down to a focus question, because essentially you need to hang your research on a focus question. So something you can explore and obviously answer in the course of your research. So to begin the process, I think personally you have to have some sort of working knowledge of the topic, so not just a general basic sort of overview of a topic, but you have to actually do a little bit of digging. And I would argue that some of those places to start looking at would be dictionaries to get a definition of the actual terms of the subject you're looking at or the topic you're looking at, and then start to look at things like encyclopedias, maybe Wikipedia even, look at maybe textbooks or handbooks in a particular discipline if that's the way you want to go, and just so you have at least a general understanding, and maybe a little bit more than a general understanding, of what's involved in a particular topic. Even during this early phase, I think you should be, I guess, attempting to ask questions about, and I've put on slide 17, questions like who, what, when, where, etc. For me, those are questions that really are the basis of curiosity and why you would be investigating a topic in the first place. But they should begin to inform, sorry for the muffled cough, they should begin to inform your actual search. Now on slide 18 I've kind of broadened this out to start for you to start to consider things like what you already know about a topic in the process of reading, number of resources, so in other words, do you have access to a lot of information about this particular topic, and my hope is that as you actually begin to explore a topic, something will pop out of the literature, either something that you find curious or that's interesting, or maybe that it simply bothers you, that you'd like to find out more about it just to simply satisfy perhaps an unease you have with the subject. But for the most part, I want it to be interesting for you. The other things, the other aspect to consider really is whether, if there is things that are unclear in a subject and you want to actually get some clarity in a particular area, maybe you've got to consider that there's different schools of thought that you haven't considered, that's worth exploring, and obviously there's different perspectives, say within sociology or psychology for instance. So as you explore these things, you begin to ask questions, as I've indicated on slide 19, about what's actually worthy of your time. You're going to effectively spend a month researching a particular thing or topic, and given that that's quite a lot of time, it's obviously got to be of interest and something that will sustain you throughout. In terms of actually starting to develop a question, even looking at rather descriptive hows and whys, and providing they're not closed questions, essentially you have the seeds of what hopefully will develop into a good research question. The primary thing is, as I've indicated on 19, is that you formulate a question based on something you want to find out. And to me that's a fairly important aspect of any research. It's not only of interest and that you're curious about a particular subject, but that you've actually got the motivation to find out about that particular thing. Now on slide 20 I asked the big questions, or at least they're rhetorical in this sense. You should be asking yourself, when you're in the process of developing a research question, do you actually have enough space to develop the ideas that you have around a particular topic? In other words, I've said 1500 words is the limit for this particular assignment. Is that enough space to fully develop an idea within a topic? Because remember, like I said, you're going to be narrowing your work. You'll start from a broad topic and hopefully you'll find some interesting aspect within that topic, and you'll chase that thread through. So there'll be a seam there that you want to go, that you want to drill, so to speak, and you'll find that. But obviously you have to work within the parameters, and in this case the word count of the actual assignment. So also you've got to consider the time. Do I have enough time to genuinely cover or scope the entire breadth of the information out there on a particular subject? If you pick a fairly narrow field, then you have more opportunity to explore more resources, because you're not obviously dealing with a lot of the broader aspects of a particular topic. And these questions are serious ones. Like I said, you have to literally go through and genuinely, I guess, almost be truthful with yourself. Do I have enough time and space to do this particular thing that I want to do? If not, it just takes refinement. You'll have to simply go down a slightly different route, perhaps. The activity that I've put on slide 21 really is just to try and get students, certainly attending students, to consider how they would ask questions in relation to the 4 topics that I've put up. What do they see as the most important? And any of these can be broken down into several areas. And those areas are worth exploration, quite simply. Sadly for distance students, it's a more difficult task because you can't really get feedback on this, but maybe it's worth at least considering what you might do if you actually had these types of questions. Or should I say topics? What you can do from slide 22, when you start to devising your own questions, start to consider whether the questions that you have begun to formulate, whether they're simply descriptive, so they provide information. And remember, like I said, that's information and knowledge, 2 very different things that we're trying to highlight during this unit. I've resisted kind of knocking you over the head with this every week, but however, it's an important sort of founding principle behind the unit. Anyway, so whether the question is descriptive, so it's information based, or if it's analytical, that involves knowledge. And are the boundaries always clear between these? That would be up to you to determine. Now, as a completely separate issue, on slide 23, for attending students, we're going to have a discussion about assignment 2. For distance students, I've put up a discussion board within the assignment umbrella or module for you guys to, if you have any questions about assignment 2. I will put in a discussion board directly related to assignment 3, probably the next week or so. So questions can be, at least be sent in regarding assignment 3. However, I'd like everyone to concentrate on assignment 2 for the time being. Obviously, it's due soon enough, as they say, and the focus really should be on that. Anyway, thanks for listening. Have a great week. I'll talk to you next week.